Are you legally minimizing your future tax burden and staying compliant in today's complex tax code? If not, our sponsor, Michelou Consulting, has over 30 years of experience providing top-quality professional services in accounting and tax preparation for a wide variety of clients like you. Whether you need a tax return, filing, planning, bookkeeping, financial statements, full-service payroll, or a corporate or individual tax return, I personally recommend you to contact Jeffrey Ressler, CPA, at 561-237-5264. That number again is 561-237-5264. And you can visit his website at jrcpa.net. That's jrcpa.net. Tell Jeff that Chad Deckard sent you from this podcast to receive his special rate for listening to this show. Thank you very much. Broadcasting from the city of sun and rain off the Atlantic Ocean in Boca Raton, Florida. Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation and around the world. I'm your host, Chad Deckard, and welcome to my Internet Marketing Pro podcast show. My shows will cover how to grow your business as well as topics on tips, tricks, and techniques, digital lifestyles, the future of finance, and entrepreneurism. Thank you for tuning into my show as we begin this adventure together exploring many great things to come. Now, let's cover a few quick announcements before we get started. I really appreciate you all giving me the feedback that I've been getting. What a difference it makes in motivating me to put these shows out and continually think of the next subject matter that I'd like to explore with you all. I'm also very excited about you all helping me get more subscribers by sharing my content with your social network. My weekly listener base is growing a great deal week after week, and that's the greatest payoff my listeners can do, for giving back to me for my efforts and time and putting this show together. If you like my show and find it resourceful, please do your social network a favor and share, like, post, leave a comment, give me a review, or subscribe to my show, most importantly. I greatly appreciate your efforts and support. Now, let me make one more announcement, and that is, please be sure to check out a new resource that I've put up. It's called ezinegenerator.com. It's a free resource that'll give you over-the-shoulder teaching, just like video, podcasts, product and service reviews, and great resources that cover the total internet spectrum. And it's not only, the best thing about it is that it's totally free for you. You can also sign up to post your own blog or RSS feed at no cost as long as you follow the rules. And there's also a paid subscription service for various services from not only myself, but various partners that I've partnered up with and work with in the industry. So let's get down to business for today's show. Hello and welcome. Thank you for tuning in to Internet Marketing Pro. And today we have Don Campbell with us. Hello, Don. How are you?
Great, Chad. Thanks for having me. Good to be on the show.
Well, I appreciate you giving me the waiting for me. I was about 10 minutes late to the show. I was trying to get lunch and got caught up on some traffic. There was an accident, but I'm glad we got a chance before this holidays weekend to have our chit chat here. And I believe today we're going to discuss how online interviews can help and hurt your small business. So I'm going to kind of get right into the nitty gritty of the show. Why are online reviews important for small business today?
Well, so I'm kind of in an interesting spot. I get to work with a lot of small business owners and I mean offline businesses too, like thinking about, dentists and chiropractors and, roof washing, you name it, right? All different kinds of small businesses. And one of the things that we found is that, I think we all know our own consumer behavior is that when we're trying to find somebody new to do something for us, even a service-based business or a product, we like to read the reviews, right? Even for online ordering, like when I buy a book at Barnes & Noble, I have to look up the review on Amazon first now. I'm just conditioned right before I'll buy the book. And so I think people are getting used to looking at these reviews, and it's super important for business owners to kind of think about that and be proactive around it.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think we used to talk, I used to say this all the time years ago, and it's still prevalent. I think the greatest form of advertising is the word of mouth. There's nothing better than, somebody coming back, say your buddy, and he saw a really cool movie, and he's like, this is a really cool movie, or hey, like the movie Oblivion. I love sci-fi, but everyone says, Chad, just wait till it comes out on video, save your $11 or $10 to go see the movie. I'm like, thanks, I probably will now since everybody says that collectively. And, sometimes you can, listen or read the thing what the guy says about the reviews, but I've also noticed that sometimes when the guy writes the review. I sometimes be opposite of that. Like, I actually like that movie.
Right.
But
right.
they are important, are heavily weighted in today's society, no doubt. So, I mean, my next question would be, do they have to participate in an online review? I mean, do people have to participate in an online review to,
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, it's funny because that's the biggest question I hear from small business owners, surprisingly, is you start talking to them and say, they'll say, I don't really want to do online reviews because I'm afraid that I might get a bad one. And they don't realize that they don't have a choice, right? I mean, people are out there and people can leave your business a review on Yelp or on Google Plus or on Yahoo, or there are many other places that they can leave online reviews. And so the business owner doesn't really have a choice. And kind of tying back into your first question, you not only do you want to be on top of it in case someone leaves you a review, but cultivating these reviews is so important for your business because, it increases your search rankings, right? Mm-hmm. And it increases the click-throughs from, so if you do show up on the front page, but then you've got reviews next to yours and the other guy doesn't, they're probably going to click through. And it also increases conversions because people are going to trust you more. Exactly what you said. People are going to say, if other people are saying, yeah, I went here and it was great, the food was fantastic, that just increases your, chance that you're going to actually go there or give them a call and make an appointment or a reservation. So, yeah, it's one of those funny things where it's a real sort of, scary thing for business owners is like the whole online, it's out of their control, right? And so that, and therefore it's scary. And that's why it's so important to be proactive and engage with be proactive with your customers and like ask for these reviews.
Yeah, like we do on our podcast.
Exactly, right? You probably say, hey, leave me a review on iTunes and right on your podcast.
Right. And more likely, hopefully we'll get good ones because we're not charging you any money for these podcasts and this information. We're doing this because we have a passion for what we talk about. So give us good reviews, please.
Yeah, I see you've got a lot of good ones out there now. So
I'm working on it. I think the more you ask, the more you'll actually receive them. Like you were just saying, if you don't ask for them, don't expect to get them. It's almost like you have to like mesmerize or what is it when they take the little ticking thing and it goes back and forth like the watch.
Yeah, hypnotize.
That's right, hypnotize. It's hypnotic marketing.
But it's a good point though that you have to ask. Right? Is that a lot of businesses recognize that word of mouth referrals, like you said earlier, are important to them, or reviews are important to them, but they don't have any system for asking for. And if you're providing a good product or a good service, or like your podcast, you're providing all this great information, and people like it, they're happy to give you a review, right? Because they're getting value from what you're doing, and it's okay for you to ask, hey, would you mind leaving me a review? It helps me out a lot. And so that's the kind of thing people have to, like you've done, you've got to make that up as part of your system, as part of
it's in my script.
How you ask. Yep.
Yeah, it's scripted in the beginning. I think I might even ask people 3 times if you really listen to what I'm saying and I open the script or I talk about it in my announcements, and then by the time I end with my bumper at the end of the program, I've asked you 3-4 times, and I've realized it does really work, and I'm seeing more and more people picking up and doing reviews. And another thing that I do that I want to add to what you're saying, not only do you ask for the review, but you need to be gracious, I believe, as a business owner, and go back and make sure that you maintain and respond to those reviews when people do it, if you can, because you can't always see where people are doing it. But I tell them, hey, as long as you're on either YouTube or iTunes or another what was it the other format? I can't remember. But whatever it is, those formats, like Facebook or whatever, those social networks, then I can respond. But don't expect me to find on some small, podcastworld.com, where somehow they picked up my feed and I don't even know that it even is like hosted there, that I can even respond to you, because I don't know that it even exists, because these shows do propagate the internet even further than where we syndicate them knowingly. And that's really great because it travels that much further. So we do the best that we can to maintain what we can. And not only that, thank people for doing that too as well, because it does add up to your social clout, and it does mean something. I believe with the new way, I believe the direction of Google's going is like, it seems like the search has changed so much now that it's whatever's fresh and new and right to the point gets like almost priority these days,
For sure. Yeah, and for a small, like an offline business, it's really important to do that, what you're talking about as well. Like you just gave a great example of how you respond to the reviews that people leave for you on your podcast if you can, right? If you know about them. Mm-hmm. And same thing for small businesses. I mean, these are great opportunities, right? If someone leaves you a review on Yelp or on Google+, you can respond to those reviews too. Even if they're positive, you can say, hey, thanks for the great review. We've really worked hard on this, or this is, and what's cool is all that stuff, all that text, that's all indexed by Google too. Mm-hmm. So all that review text, this is another way that reviews help you with your ranking, and it shows your customers and it shows prospective customers that you're out there engaged and you're listening to them. And everybody wants to do business with somebody who's out there actively engaged with their customers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And not only that, it's almost kind of a viral situation, because if you do respond and someone has a question, they're more likely to engage knowing that you're there to respond than just putting a question out there that's a pie in the sky. And, sometimes, in some of these communities, when they have so much momentum going, somebody else is probably answering it for you a lot of the time.
Yep.
I've seen some crazy things. I was on something last night where they used, I believe it was fire, and there was 4,400 people on a hangout. And it was pretty amazing watching this hangout, all these people, dropping texts and stuff. And it was funny. I was playing around dropping affiliate links on there, and the guy got mad for me being spammy. I said, well, the next time you think about being spammy, don't send me 20 messages about today's, this get together when I never asked for it in the first place. So I'm going to take a liberty and test some few things on your landing page in this technology, and then I'll let that be. And it was kind of cool because I popped it in there and got like 43 hits and 2 sales off of just trying it. I was like, that's pretty cool. But, I wasn't trying to be flagrant, but at the same time, I'm like, hey, it's a testing. There's 4,400 people in here. I want to see what it does, and I was just curious, but I wasn't hurting anybody. But anyway, and I'm sorry if you're listening to this, the person, and I did that. I won't do it again. But it's just I'm just that kind of guy who likes to play and tinker with things and stuff. But, let me ask you, my next question would be, how many online reviews does a business need? And does it matter how many you have? I mean, is more better than, or worse, or is there a quality situation? What is that?
Well, it's a good question. I think, what the best way to do that is if you're a certain type of business, let's say that you're, I don't know, just make up, I'm a florist in San Jose, California, and you do that search in Google and see what comes up. You want to be as just on the high end, right? So if everybody else on average has, 10 reviews, if you've got 100, then that kind of looks a little fishy, right? So it's not like you have to just go for the most reviews possible. That what Google is looking for in their algorithm, and so are the other, the different search engines who figure out how to rank people, they're just looking for a natural review profile. And what that means is just over time, you're accumulating reviews, nice and easy, right? It's not like you've got 100 one day, like you got one day and 100 the next, then they know something's wrong and they're going to flag you. But if you've got a nice, like if the average number of reviews for your industry is 8, you want to have 10, right? Or 15 or 20, but you don't need to necessarily go and try and stack them all up.
Sounds like illegal backlinking.
Yeah, because people do that, right? They buy reviews just like they buy backlinks. And once Google finds that out, they basically slap them down and give them a penalty. And you don't want to, it might work for a while, but then you just get punished. So, the good news, the best way to do it is just to get a system like you're talking about with your podcast. Only for a small business, it might be when someone comes in the office and they have a great visit, you can ask them if, there's some ways you can sort of train your staff to ask for people to leave these reviews. And then over time, you build them up. And then when you inevitably get that bad review, you've got 15 or 20 out there and you get one bad one, it's okay because it's, first of all, you can respond to it. Second of all, it gives the other reviews more credibility. But yeah, the converse is a pain, right? Because if I'm not collecting reviews, I'm not doing anything, and then I get that bad review, now it's the only one out there.
Yeah, it's the eyesore. Like, how do I get rid of that,
Yeah, I was working with this optometrist once a couple years ago. I started working with him. He didn't have a website. He was just like, I think I should figure this online thing out, right? And so I started looking around and, we looked up his business to kind of see what his footprint was. And so you couldn't find this guy anywhere. Even if you searched on his name, the only thing that came up for him was his name as a doctor on Yelp, and he had one review. Right? He didn't know about it. It was a negative review. Ooh. So, and that had been out there for 8 months. So the only way anyone's ever going to find him on the internet is to see that negative review on Yelp. And when I showed it to him, he said, "Oh my gosh, I know that guy. He's one of my patients, and I totally took care of him." And I said, "Well, you better call him up because man, this is not looking good." And he called the guy up, and the guy was like, "Oh no, we're fine. You took care of me," and he had him change the review. And my point is, if you're not on top of this, then you could be losing business and you don't even know it.
Right? It almost kind of ties right into reputation management then.
Yeah.
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 So, I guess my next question would be, well, we are kind of already said this, but it's like, how should businesses get more reviews? But there's a lot of different ways, even though we've only touched a few. I mean, maybe we could dive a little bit deeper into that question.
Yeah, what's worked surprisingly well I've worked with a bunch of businesses over the last 4 years on this, and the simplest method for this, I'll give you an example of a chiropractor who wasn't on the web, and she wasn't, didn't know what to do, and we built her a really basic website, got her ranking in Google local searches, and started building reviews. So what she would do is, as patients would come in, like for her best patients or patients that would say, "Wow, this was really a great visit. You really helped me out." Her receptionist, her office manager was really sharp, and she just kept a clipboard and said, "Hey, well, thanks for that. Online reviews are becoming super important for us. If I were to send you a link, would you mind leaving us an online review? It'll only take you 5 minutes." And they'd say, "Yeah, sure, no problem. Well, can I have your email address?" So then she'd write down the name and email address, right? Because they didn't even have the email addresses of their patients. And then at the end of the week, she's got a list of like 20 people, and she sends out an email, right? And it says, "Hey, and it's from the doctor. It says, 'Thanks for coming in this week. While you were here, I asked if you wouldn't mind leaving a review. Here's a direct link to our Google profile. If you would leave us a review out there, I'd really appreciate it." So in that way, every week she's adding a couple. Now, everybody, says they'll do it, but a lot of times they don't get around to it. They intend to. So you kind of have to ask regularly because everyone's busy, and they don't always get to it. But in this way, she's like building up a couple of reviews every week. And next thing you know, she's got all these great reviews out there. And now, she gets all of her new business from the web, from her website. And every week she's got people coming in. What really convinced me to come here and try you out is I saw all those great reviews out there
and they add up. It's kind of like bricks. You kind of start with one, you start stacking, and next thing you know, eventually you've built a building, and that's your threshold, your platform. And it's very solid, and to have a bad one, like you said, it's more legitimate. And you know what? You can't make everybody happy, so don't feel bad if you do get some bad reviews here and there. You can't make everybody happy, and if you do see a bad review, do your best as far as trying to maybe rectify the situation. And then maybe the person who might. I don't want to say sometimes people just want to shut you right down, and there's not really nothing you can do about it. But hey, if you've got more that outweigh the bad, then it is what it is. But
yeah, and that brings up another point. As I hear this question a lot, people say, "Well, what do I do if I get a bad review?" Right? And the reality is, you probably know this too. I've worked with a lot of businesses, and no matter how good you are, at some point somebody's going to have a bad day and just get ticked off and leave you a bad review. It just happens to everybody sometimes. And so but the good news is there are a lot of things you can do. Like if you do get a bad review, you can contact that customer. Like I gave the example of that optometrist earlier, and he took care of it, and the customer changed their review, right? But in a lot of cases, it could be somebody you're not sure who it is, right? You don't know who left the review. But what's cool is like on Yelp and on Google and on many of the other review services, if you've registered your profile there and somebody leaves you a bad review, you can actually respond to them. Now, Yelp doesn't give you their email address, but through the system, you can leave a response and say, "Look, I saw your review. I'm really sorry that this happened, and I want to make it up to you." Maybe you offer them a free dinner, or whatever it is for your business, you try and take care of it. And a lot of times people will respond to that. They just want to be listened to, right? Mm-hmm. And so that rectifies, and they'll go and change the review if you take care of them. And sometimes you can turn a bad review into a chance to get a customer for life, right? The customer knows you're listening and you care. I've seen this happen over and over again. Now, if you can't get it resolved with the customer, you can still leave a public response as a business owner. So on Yelp, for example, or on Google, if someone leaves you a bad review, you try to connect with them and resolve the situation, and they're just too angry, or sometimes you'll have competitors doing this, right?
Yeah.
People that are just kind of being wicked. But you can leave a response there that's publicly available, and that allows you to tell your side of the story. And it shows, if you do it right, it shows people that, hey, this guy's got one bad review and 10 good ones. And here on the bad review, he tried to resolve it with the person, and he's actually listening and responding. I'm like, that's fine. I get it. Right? But what you don't want to be is in a situation where you've got 3 or 4 bad reviews out there and 1 good review, and you haven't responded to anything, because people are like, okay, just move on. I'll go to the next one.
Right. Yeah. Engaging them is definitely important, whether it's positive or negative.
Yep.
No cloud. It's just reputation management, as they say.
Exactly. Yeah, it is.
And maintaining it. So, like we were talking and touching about it a little bit, earlier in this program here, I've seen services that allow you to purchase, online reviews. Should I use those? Because I would think that they would help in some cases, but I think it sort of comes down to, maybe from what you were saying, maybe the amount of how much I throttle it. Maybe like you said, maybe I get by like 5 or 10 a week instead of trying to buy 1,000 and have it literally overnight. What's your take?
Well, it's very much like the link situation with it for people who know how Google ranks websites, right? If you had to boil that down to the simplest level, Google looks at, hey, how many other reputable websites are linking to this website, and that are on topic for it. So if I do a search for something, they want to know how many other websites. So a lot of times Google know their algorithm's really smart, and it figures out like what those link profiles look like. And so then people go off and say, I know, I'll buy a bunch of links, and then I'll shoot up to the top of the rankings. And Google is really, really smart about knocking that stuff down. And with the Panda and Penguin updates over the last couple of years, you've seen businesses basically get put out of business because they were relying on a bunch of junky links, right? So same thing with reviews. If you go and buy reviews, Google and Yelp and all these guys have what they call filters that will filter these reviews out. And they're the algorithms are super smart. And if you do it enough, they'll actually penalize you, and you're not going to rank. So it's just, in my opinion, it is not worth it. Like, don't buy reviews. Don't try to game the system. Just build a business, engage with your customers so that they naturally will leave you, and ask them. The great example of your podcast, you're asking people politely, you're asking on a regular basis, and people are going to leave you reviews because you're delivering value. And so that's what the business needs to think about, is don't worry about buying reviews. Just do a good job with your customers and ask them to help you, and they'll leave you the reviews, and you'll be set. And those algorithms, you've got teams of people. Like Google has a web spam team, like a whole bunch of people that just sit around all day trying to figure out who's trying to game their system and their algorithms. And these are smart people. So they know what's going on out there. And you don't want to get caught on the wrong end of that. That's why so many businesses got hammered with these Panda and Penguin updates for the Google algorithms.
Let me ask you this. When we're talking about the reviews here, like, I have to admit that I was tipped off of this a couple months ago about, and yes, I got plenty. I'm not trying to say all my reviews are all fake or anything. In fact, I'd say 95, 99% of them are real, but there are a few that I paid for as an experiment.
Okay.
Once again, it was one of those things, and what the review that I'm actually looking for, like that I was, as a podcaster, is, for instance, it really helps to get weighted in, say a private platform like iTunes, or it's like some people are on SoundCloud, or all their different types of private platforms. How would that relate to Google or what you're saying right now in that matter? Because is it relative, or, in that case, I'm thinking like, what does Google really even care? Because they're not really ranking my podcast, but it does help when someone lands on my podcast page on iTunes and sees that, right now I'm sitting at maybe 18, 19 reviews. I wish I had a couple hundred. But I did buy 1 or 2 of those But I did an exchange where I was like, I'm on a different platform where they'll do reviews, and I say, if you do reviews, I'm like trading some kind of virtual currency for it in exchange. And people will do that, but it doesn't happen very quickly, or I realize it didn't really work. But would that affect me?
Well, that's a really good question. So there's two things going on here, right? One is when we talk about the small business owner, reviews that are left for you on Yelp or on Google Plus or on Yahoo, those do factor in on your search rankings.
Oh,
okay?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm talking about it from the Google perspective. But even within the private platform, let's just say Yelp for a minute, right? If you go try to buy reviews or you get people to review you on Yelp, Yelp itself has the algorithm that says, hey, I think this is a fake review. It looks at all kinds of things. It looks at things like, hey, does this person who left the review have a profile picture? How many other reviews have they left? Right? Were they all, like, you'll see some reviews, you'll see that it's really interesting. You can go into a review profile and see this review, and you click through to the person, you see that they left a review for a business in New York City, one in Atlanta, and one in Portland, Oregon on the same day. You're like, okay, I don't think he was really at all those places, right? So, I mean, they look at all these kinds of things and they go, okay, this is a fake review, and they filter it out. And if you get enough of those, then they can do other things, like maybe your business doesn't show up where it should within Yelp searches. So there's two factors here, right? Like in the case of iTunes, like you said, you got a couple of reviews on there. Now, it's probably not affecting any Google rankings. We don't know, but the algorithm probably is not looking at, it's probably not looking at the number of iTunes reviews to decide where to rank the Internet Marketing Pro podcast within a Google search. But iTunes probably has something. So if you had all of a sudden today you had 18 and then tomorrow you had 105 reviews, there's probably something going on within iTunes where they're going to look at that and say, how did that happen? Maybe not. So it depends. I mean, you're not doing anything crazy here where you've got 500 reviews and people are going, that looks fishy, right? Exactly. So it totally depends on the situation here. I think. But it can affect you. It just depends on the platform.
But people like yourself and me who are kind of, the entrepreneurial mind, we're the kind of tinkers, and when you're trying to find something or research something, sometimes you go a little on the dark side or the gray area because of the fact that you kind of want to see what the limits and the boundaries are as far as pushing the limits and the boundaries, because you always want to try to get the most optimization and the best results that you can, and then know how far you can actually push it. Sometimes you go overboard. I mean, I know one time I did that. I wanted to test out. Somebody said you could buy views on YouTube. And I was like, okay. And I knew that I probably wouldn't get away with it, but I said, let's try it anyway. So I was buying views on YouTube, and it was I had the monetization turned on, and yeah, it was cranking money up like really fast. But and it would spike. And then, of course, like you said, YouTube figured it out. And I thought I was really going to get away with it for a second. I was like right there like the day that they issue the check. And I was always getting my checks on time. And I was like, wow, tomorrow they still haven't cut it down or they counter anything. And I wonder if they're going to cut the check. No, they just cut off the monetization at the last minute. And I was like, bummer. But, even when you buy, like, when you talk about reviews, you can buy views and things like that. And you got to be careful about it. I don't believe that those are necessarily, you don't want to do it if somebody's paying you or monetizing, because it would be definitely dishonest. But, I guess I learned a lot in that experience about YouTube and how they count and how the system works, and a lot of things that I didn't know beforehand, and that helps me sometimes when I push the limit like that to learn and dig in and get deep, as far as the depth of how something works. But I realized too, a lot of those views would only last for like 3 seconds, and they were coming from all these little countries around Russia. So I was thinking, they're useless to me. No one's really watching my content. They're not really anything other than giving me an uptick, and I don't think that even is going to weigh with YouTube. But in some fashion, I thought it would weigh. I did it more recently where I wasn't monetizing one of these podcast shows, and I paid for a small amount of views to come in, because I wanted to see whether or not that would cause it to go viral faster and give it some lift, which it did actually. I did find that I got twice as many organic views because of those views, the way they stacked. And because there was enough people that were already watching my show, that the law of averages, maybe the amount of retention went down, but I still ended up picking up a lot more maybe listeners to the show because of it, because it was showing up in ranking within YouTube. So, like you got to play around. I mean, I wouldn't say that you go around and do it on your business, but if you have like, say, you're kind of a tinker like me and you want to see, how things work or how far you can really push it and what the boundaries are, I'm just sharing some of the dark stuff that I've worked on and do every now and then, just to see those types of things and get that kind of information. I don't know if you do anything like that or anything you could share on that, but.
Experimenting, you're experimenting, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Right. I think you've got quality content out there on your podcast and on YouTube, and so you're just trying to figure out how the system works. I think what I've seen, you probably know people that got really, really, their business was cut in half or worse when some of these Google algorithm updates happened, right? So they got into the habit of buying links and maybe not producing the quality content in there. So they artificially were getting boosted up, maybe with affiliate revenue or ad revenue, and then Google comes through and says, "Look, you bought all these links from known link farms, and I've just devalued them. Your business is cut in half." So, you pay the price. I mean, if you build in certain ways and you do it systematically, and that's all you're doing, at some point it's going to catch up to you. It might work for a while, but that's different, I think, than experimenting and figuring out how the system works, but all the while you're producing really good quality content. People are getting introduced to your podcast or your YouTube channel, and they're saying, okay, this is good stuff. I'm learning from it. They're going to stick around. They're going to keep coming back, or they're going to get on your email list. I mean, I think that's really that's kind of how I look at it. It's like, how do you, some people are going to experiment and try different things, and, it's everybody draws the line at a different spot. I just don't want to wake up one morning and have my business chopped in half. So that's why I try to, I'll do some experiments, but then I try to play by the rules once I understand what they are, just so that I don't get that nasty surprise down the road.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people that were totally affected by that one way or another, and it's funny. A lot of them had to kind of come out and are all saying pretty much the same thing. Like, I've got to kind of reinvent myself because I was making all my income and stuff, and it was a good ride, but it's over. And I'm like, wow, I can't imagine what that must be like.
Well, yeah, you're producing like 3 podcasts a week, right? And interviewing all these people and do it. So it's different. What I think ticks me off is people that aren't really adding a lot of value, but they're just playing games to get links and sell ads, and then they get mad when Google changes something and think Google's evil. It's like, no, it's not. You weren't putting anything of quality out there. So I don't feel bad for those people, right?
Right.
But if you're out there producing and working and producing great stuff, then that's not going to happen to you, because
I agree.
Google wants.
Yeah. I don't do that kind of stuff. I don't really put out the garbage or do any of that black hat stuff. Now, I know I just shared with you that I did the views and all in the review thing, but it's only because of my podcast. Like, I'm just pushing the limits of, how can I build a bigger customer base faster, or is there any little tiny shortcuts or any kind of little innuendo things that people that are off the beaten path that could be like a golden nugget that I discovered? Because I'll tell you what, if you don't have that kind of mindset, then don't expect to find anything that's going to be like eureka.
There's no silver bullet, right?
Right. Yeah. And I tell you, all the years that I've been in internet marketing for over 2 decades, it's these types of things where you push the limits when you find sometimes the greatest thing, and sometimes you might be just barely pushing the cutting edge there, but as long as it's legal and it's good stuff, I mean, that's what puts you over the top. I mean, I'll give you an example. When I put out my, I've brought this up in many shows. A lot of you have listened to my shows now. It's like I'm in the 40s now, and I started off on the internet, with an email marketing platform. And in the beginning, everybody was calling me a spammer. I'm like, wait a second. I'm not a spammer. People are giving me their addresses. I just happened to figure out a way and build a platform that can send to everybody at the same time the same message. That's not what I consider spamming if they wanted the message. And then number 2 is, I wasn't so much doing that anymore once I got really big in that business, had tens of thousands of customers. I was basically just providing the service, but yet they say, well, that's like creating the gun. but I didn't pull the trigger, but the thing is like you're enabling them. So, I mean, people will look at things like, just like reviews, positive or negative, in many different ways. And everybody has a different opinion, and that's fine. But it doesn't matter. Sometimes you just got to push the limits. And if you feel uncomfortable, like, I guess, asking for reviews, don't feel uncomfortable, because it's going to be a norm in the future, if not already now, that you're going to see more and more and more people rely on the fact and asking for reviews, or feedback on every transaction possible.
Yeah, and you've earned that too in a lot of cases. If you're providing great service and you're helping out, you believe in what you do, then usually people don't mind, right? They're not going to mind referring you to a friend or leaving you a review because they like what you're doing. So, I mean, but I know I have a hard time with that too. I'm not a natural born salesperson, so it's hard for me to ask for those kind of things. But I find when I do, people are happy to do it, right? They're like, yeah, gosh, I've learned a bunch from you. I don't mind at all. I'd love to help you out. And that's how the world goes around, right? That kind of stuff is how we help each other succeed.
I think it all comes down to timing too, because I've done this before where, I might have a guest on the show, and I'll hit them up like after I do the show and say, hey, do you mind, giving me a review to help the show? And it's just one of those courtesy things, that, when somebody's scratching your back, you want to kind of scratch. I mean, how long does a review take? Like 2 minutes? Big deal. And,
right.
I think it does come down to timing, because sometimes, I've asked people for that and they might not give it right away. I know they're busy. And then a week will go by and I'll be like, man, I wonder why they didn't give me a review yet. I'll hit them up again nicely, but I'll have to have something that I kind of like maybe relate to something else, and they go, oh, by the way.
Yeah. Right.
Because you don't want to be a pest, but, be a little bit, I'd say Rico Suave in the situation. If someone doesn't respond and give you the review that you want right away, maybe you can shroud it behind some other subject matter and then do the by the way situation and get around that uncomfort zone of feeling like you might be bugging someone. I guess that could be a good tip,
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
From my experience. Do you have any other tips that you want to share with us? Because we're getting kind of at the bottom of the show here.
I think that's it. I mean, just be proactive about your reviews and like, first of all, monitor so that you know what's being said about you online. You don't want to get surprised. So make sure that you are watching for this stuff. And second is be proactive about asking your best customers for reviews. And like you said, it's okay to ask more than once as long as you're doing it politely and you're adding value. Ask for those and then follow up when people leave you good or bad reviews. Make sure that you engage in that conversation, and that's just such a great opportunity. I mean, I've seen so many cases where people take a negative review and turn it into an opportunity to show great customer service, and they end up getting a customer for life and a showcase that a lot of other people are seeing online and how they handled it. And so you can really make this a powerful way to grow your business if you do it right. And it's probably one of the most important things you can do online for the business. So I appreciate the chance to talk about it today, Chad.
Well, we appreciate having you on here. This was, I think, I really like the subject matter of the show. It's very different, fresh. I really haven't seen too many things out there really covering this topic. I think it really does need to be maybe addressed even more in the public about the reputation and reviews. And I know that you have a website, expand, and that's the number 2 web.com, where you have tools and training to get your business online. And you can bring people through, I guess, a step-by-step approach of getting their business online and how to go about doing it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Expand2web.com, and we've got training for small business owners and consultants that help small business owners. We've got software, and we just launched a tool recently that helps with your online reviews. I hope you don't mind me mentioning
go
this,
ahead.
But it basically helps you automate that process. It's called Get 5 Stars, so get5stars.com, and basically helps you kind of collect the emails of your customers and ask them for reviews and monitor your online reviews and all the stuff we talked about. So
awesome. Is there anything else that you're involved with? That you do another course, don't you? With the
That's right. So I'm part of the School of Internet Marketing. with James Martell and several other instructors, and really excited because that's getting off the ground now. And we've got a lot of great courses in there for small business owners that cover this kind of stuff, covers building your website, how to manage your social media, how to do affiliate marketing. There's just a lot of great content from a lot of great instructors there. So I'm super excited about that initiative too.
I'm super excited too.
Good, yeah.
I get to interview just about everybody that wants to be interviewed in the crew.
All the instructors.
And then, like I said, I was asked to become an instructor. I just got to figure out where my niche lies with everybody else so that we don't overlap content. But I'm sure I've looked at some of the content and I've found a couple little areas that I wouldn't mind digging into myself that no one's covering. But I really appreciate you being on the show, Don. It's been a real pleasure, and I hope to have you back maybe sometime in the fall. I'm not sure. Are you going to Affiliate Summit in August?
No, I'll probably go to the one in January on the West Coast. But yeah.
Well, maybe I'll get a chance to sit down and have a drink and have another interview there.
Great. That'd be awesome. Thanks, Chad.
Well, I appreciate it, and that's about it for this show, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back in next week with a new show.